Alright, buckle up, buckaroos. We're on a ride today. We're going to talk about Rage Against the Machine, Dave Chappelle, and the KKK. Should be interesting. A lot of stuff's happening in the BLM movement and the George Floyd protests, and this is the funnier part of it, is that a lot of people that were big fans of Rage Against the Machine back in the 90s and early 2000s just realized that they're political. What? How's that possible? So this is Twitter responding to them. I mean, some of this stuff gets hilarious. The actual lead singer says, "What music of mine were you a fan of that didn't contain political BS? I won't need to know so I can delete it from the catalog." Oh, who was the original guy? I used to be a fan until your political opinions come out. Music is my sanctuary, and the last thing I want to hear is political BS when I'm listening to music. As far as I'm concerned, you and Pink are completely done. Is Pink saying some shit? I don't even know about it. Keep running your mouth and ruining your fan base. So this guy, he's got to be like the most piled on guy of all time right now. How could a band with such titles as Take the Power Back, Killing in the Name, Know Your Enemy, and Guerrilla Radio could possibly be political? This one's hilarious. The people angrily denouncing Rage Against the Machine. What machine did you think they have been raging against for decades? The ice cream machine? The ATM? Lawnmowers? Here's a Garfield cartoon. White conservatives listened to Rage Against the Machine and thought, "Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me," was directed at like their moms or something. Here's a picture of them actually burning a flag on stage in 1999. Now they've all of a sudden gone political and leftist. Like, it's insane that people don't realize stuff. This is exactly NPC territory. You would have to be. This is the same thing with that video I just made today also about that new song with that white dude singing. It don't make no sense. It's like NPC shit. Like y'all ain't listening to the lyrics at all, and y'all don't care. You just like, it just goes in one ear and out the other, and you don't think about it at all because they're non-thinking beings. They're just people. I don't even know. I wish Rage Against the Machine would stop being political and go back to writing songs about bulls at a parade. I saw a tweet from Cookie Monster saying he liked cookies. I'm all, "Keep it to yourself, furry friend. I thought you knew. I thought I knew you." So, the weird thing about that was, here's how I got on the KKK trail and stuff. This right here. That one song of theirs is like, "Some of those that work forces are the same that burn crosses." Forces, I never even realized that meant police force. So, he's saying like some of the people on the police force used to be in the KKK or still are. And I was thinking like back in those days of like back when you had the Gangs of New York, like that movie. And Bonnie and Clyde times and all the mobsters in Chicago and stuff. Like, a lot of those black people were getting hanged by the KKK, and then it would turn out to be that it was the police, people that were on the police force, or they're just a bunch of white guys that run the town. Like, all these little towns are made up of like white people that all know each other. And it's the good old boys club, which a lot of them, everybody always has connections with the police. Let me just move my camera over just a hair here real quick so I can move over like this. And they never got arrested for any of the hangings because police were involved with it. So you have to wonder, like, how far does it go back, and does it still persist, some of that shit today? I mean, of course it does, because police are killing black people all over the country, like every day. And they're getting away with it. So we never actually corrected that problem until now. I guess we're starting to fix it. So I really want to go back and look into some of the history of all this stuff, like how long it's been going on. How much stuff have they gotten away with, and how it's all connected and stuff. I don't know. But anyway, let's get into Dave Chappelle. So I was going to talk about this. So there's this post somebody put on Facebook about this story of Dave Chappelle was in Williamsburg, New York, area of New York, where all the like hipsters are and stuff. And he's talking about police brutality and stuff, and this privileged white girl says, "Life's hard, sorry about it." And he starts going in on her, he starts talking about slave patrols, which I don't really know that much about that. I'm gonna look into that. Rodney King, Watts, and Emmett Till and Black Wall Street. He talked about Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, John Crawford III. And then he goes into the girl goes backstage and she apologizes and says she's been educated and she didn't know what she was talking about, and he says she's become part of the solution, not part of the problem. He gets her friend, and takes pictures with him, and everything's fine. But then I was looking some more, like, there's people in the comments of this right here. This guy's talking about Mike Brown, the kid that punched a cop and had his window rolled down and grabbed at the cop's gun. And they were talking about like Trayvon Martin was kind of iffy. Like some of these guys are actually in the kind of doing crimes. Like Trayvon Martin beat the shit out of that guy, George Zimmerman, I think it was, right? So, and this one right here, the comments get kind of crazy. Like this woman's saying there's no white privilege. And she's giving all these stats about like homeless people are always white and people that live below the poverty line are white. And if you try to get government assistance and you're white, you can't get it. And 1,250 white people getting killed by the police in the last 3 years, and they got zero news coverage on it. And then this one's talking about like some other stats that don't make sense. Like why are most people on assistance white if they can't get it? And then this one brings up this guy, Tony Timpa. This is a guy, Dallas police officers did the same knee hold on him and killed him in the same way they killed George Floyd, but he didn't get any news coverage. So there's like a lot of these cases that we don't hear about. So that kind of goes along with my thing about it not being a black and white thing. It's more of a cops versus everybody thing. Like what's this one right here? Tri-East NAACP. Charges dismissed against 3 Dallas police officers in death of Rockwall man. They always just get it dismissed. They don't say how. It's like the judges are all involved. The judges are crooked. The lawyers are crooked. It goes deep. That's why you can't reform it. You got to just take them all out. Every fucking time. So I was looking at this stuff Dave Chappelle was talking about. Watts and Emmett Till. I hadn't heard of those, so I looked them up. And Emmett Till, that he was another guy that they had riots about the police killing him. But the Watts thing, I looked that up, and there's this thing called the Ghetto Riots. I didn't realize. Let me just move this over just a hair so you can see. So the Ghetto Riots lasted for 4 years. Like, I didn't hear about this in history class. 64 to 68. And there's like the Harlem Riot of 1964. After James Powell, 15-year-old African-American, shot and killed by Police Lieutenant Thomas Gilligan in front of his friends and a dozen other witnesses. 1964 Rochester Race Riot. You can look into that. Dixmoor Race Riot. Woman accused of shoplifting a bottle of gin was wrestled to the ground by the owner of the liquor store and arrested. Black residents took to the streets in anger. And then you got the Watts riots, sometimes referred to as the Watts Rebellion. How do we have a rebellion in the United States and we haven't heard about it in history class? In 1965, which is recent. 1966 Chicago West Side riots. Arrested a man that was wanted for armed robbery. Black residents took to the streets in anger, looted and burned various stores. Wait, why would you arrest... They just arrested a guy for wanted for armed robbery? That seems okay. They didn't kill him. The Ho riots. Cleveland, Ohio. 4 African Americans were killed and 50 people were injured. There were 275 arrests and numerous incidents of arson and something. Waukegan riot of 66. Puerto Rican neighborhoods. Hunters Point social uprising. Alvin Johnson was shot and Matthew Johnson, a teenager who was fleeing the scene of a stolen car. Long hot summer of 1967. This was like several cities: Atlanta, Boston, Cincinnati, Buffalo, Tampa. In July, in Birmingham, Chicago, New York City, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, New Britain, Rochester. Let's look into that. And then, of course, you got the Martin Luther King assassination riots after he was murdered. And then you got the Rodney King thing. So between like 1968 and Rodney King, I don't think there was a whole lot of stuff happening. That's why Rodney King was so much of a powder keg. It's like today, George Floyd it's not just over the one hand, it's the last straw in a long string of police abuse. Long Island Summer 67, blah, 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 blah. What's happening in the summer of love? Hippie communities? See, that's something else I need to talk about is the way police were letting out like serial killers or something and like there was a serial killer that was targeting hippies or something like that. Or he was a hippie. I think they were talking about Charles Manson. Maybe I heard this on Joe Rogan. I don't know. There's so much shit going on right now. It's blowing my mind. And they let him out to try to discredit the hippie movement because they were really anti-hippies at the time. We need to have like a history class just for the 90s, I think. Because there's so much stuff happened in the 90s that nobody ever talks about because it's not really old history. And nobody knows about it, but you need to know about it because this shit is really, really recent. Like Dave Chappelle was talking about, he hadn't heard anybody call out for their mother like the way George Floyd had when he was dying because he knew he was dying. Since his father cried out for his mother, which turned out to be the wife of his grandfather who was a slave. That's how recent it was. And he was talking about how he was in an earthquake and he thought he was going to die for like 39 seconds. See, I didn't even talk about that. The new Dave Chappelle thing just dropped like yesterday. This is the 8 minutes and 46 seconds Yeah, if you haven't seen 8 minutes 46 seconds, go see that. That's how long it was that they were on George Floyd's neck, and that's also Dave Chappelle's time he was born on his birth certificate. And Kobe Bryant died, and Kobe Bryant's jerseys were the same as his birth date, 8/24 or something like that. And then his grandpa was one of the ones. What was it he did? Man, I just watched this and I've already forgot. Oh, his grandpa was part of a delegation from South Carolina that went. They were the only ones that had been in the White House between Frederick Douglass and somebody else that was more. See, he talked about it on Saturday Night Live. So Dave Chappelle has got a lot of like weird connections to this whole thing. The biggest one though isn't even those. The biggest one is that the day before John Crawford III was murdered, Dave Chappelle got pulled over by that same cop that killed him. And he said he was worried about police brutality, and the cop says, "No, I know who you are, Dave Chappelle," and he let him off because he's a celebrity. And the next day he goes and murders this kid in Walmart because he picked up a BB gun, and he didn't even say put the gun down or stop or I'll shoot or anything like that. He just gunned him down, I think. There's a lot of fucking shit going on with these cops, man. So yeah, I was looking into these riots and stuff, and then I was looking up that guy Walter III because I hadn't recognized which one he was, and I come across this whole list of other things people search for, and you got Eric Garner kind of started it, and then you got Michael Brown who started the Ferguson riots, and then you got Tamir Rice. I kind of remember him, but I don't remember exactly how that happened. And then Walter Scott, that's the guy I always remember them shooting him in the back as he's jumping over a fence and stuff, right? And then you got Sean Bell, which I hadn't even heard of. Freddie Gray, I remember him, but I can't remember what the deal was. Was he choked out or was he shot? There's so many of these fucking things to have. And look at the list, guys. This is all recent. Amadou Diallo, I don't remember. Oscar Grant, I don't remember. Jonathan Farrell, Dontre Hamilton, Akai Gurley, Stefan Clark, Alton Sterling. They talk about him a lot, but I don't remember exactly the situation of that one. Maybe he was at a gas station. I kind of remember that a little bit. Jordan Davis, Azale Ford, Jamar Clark, Samuel DuBose, Trayvon Martin again, Antonio Martin. Is he related to Trayvon Martin? Did they kill his brother or something? Anthony Hill, Jerame Reed, Sandra Bland. That doesn't even count the woman from Louisville, Breonna, or George Floyd. This is all just related searches. This isn't even a full list of all the police killings that have happened. Oh, and John Crawford III, that happened in Beaver Creek, where Dave Chappelle lives. It's crazy all the connections he has to all this. But it wasn't even a comedy show. It was 30 minutes of him going talking political stuff about all this shit. Spouting wisdom. Hope Dave Chappelle lives to be 120 years old at least. But he smokes, so. But then there's a lot of people that live really old ages that smoke. So I don't know. We need somebody like Dave Chappelle keeping us honest. But this shit's out of control.